Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Hello, and welcome back to Healing Aspirations with Amani. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a chemical engineer by profession and a holistic dental health coach by passion. And my mission is to help mothers heal their children's cavities and help them develop beautiful, broad jaws with plenty of room for 32 resilient teeth. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. And one thing that I love to do is actually give you the most up-to-date information about various types of oral health issues and their connection with the body. And inshallah, what I'm going to do today is talk to you about teeth grinding, right? Something that's very common, very common and highly misunderstood. And what I want to do today is go through a few important things with you. First of all, what I want to talk about is the various causes of teeth grinding, including the most overlooked one, and the impact on the mouth, on the body, on the brain, and why a mouth guard isn't really ideal and how to actually solve it. So I know that some of you are watching live right now. So if you're watching live, I'd love to hear from you. Please type live in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, I'd also love to hear from you. Type replay. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. So teeth grinding. Oftentimes, when people think that tooth grinding can be something that's hereditary, they think that it could be due to parasites, stress and anxiety are also part of the equation. Different types of mineral imbalances like magnesium deficiency could be at play. And the most overlooked one is airway. And what I'm going to do today right now is go through the different types and how it actually plays a role with tooth grinding and what you can do about it, inshallah. So in terms of the first one, oftentimes when people hear about grinding, they've heard it in the holistic health space that it's often related to parasites. Hey Sarah, great to have you live. Thank you for joining me today. So oftentimes you'll see in different types of health groups or in the online space and anything holistic that it is parasites. So in terms of parasites, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about that. There have been some studies that have actually taken, place to actually discover, the relationship between digestive parasites like worms and bruxism, which is a scientific name for tooth grinding. And although research isn't actually really conclusive at this time, it has been suggested that bruxism is actually more common in children who have intestinal parasites, although it can't be said for certain that parasites actually cause bruxism. So I know that kind of sounds a little bit weird. What is actually known though is that the brain and gut, they actually have a connection through a nerve called the vagus nerve. And so it appears that, the presence of these toxic invaders may actually cause the brain to trigger the tooth grinding process in children. The other thing I do want to mention, though, alongside that, is infections often occur in children that have other symptoms going on. Things like, allergies, things like food sensitivities, nutrient deficiencies. So when you have things like parasites like pinworms or tapeworms or roundworms, when they get into that digestive system, they release toxic molecules that affect the body in a negative way, and they actually trigger the bruxism. Now, the thing is, you might be wondering, how common is a parasitic infection in my child, right? It's actually a lot more common than people would like it to be. I want you to think about, hands, water, toys, certain different types of aspects like that are actually very common sources for worms. And the interesting part is that children are more likely than adults to get worms just because they have a habit of playing with these types of things. And, transmission occurs, especially in environments where there's a lot of kids are present in one situation, such as daycare centers or the like. And they tend to have a habit of putting, their hands in their mouths, right? And especially as a side note about that, nail biting is a really common reason for a child to have an infection with worms. So if your child is doing anything like nail biting, you really want to kind of take care of that in that aspect. Now, the other thing I do want to mention going alongside with parasites, as you know, I just talked about allergies and food sensitivities. And I really want to mention that food allergens like dairy can really cause bruxism in children and adults. And in children, a lot of times you can actually get rapid improvement with grinding, because dairy, it can and often does actually cause a muscular tightening of the neck and the jaw. And so it also causes inflammation in the gut. And so while the parasites may be causing the grinding, food allergies are actually a lot more of a bigger cause and deeper cause of gut inflammation. And most likely with kids that have, leaky gut syndrome, they most likely will have an easier time getting infected than those who have a better gut. Why? Simply because 80% of the immune system is in the gut. And one of the ways that I actually help my clients in my program, the Heal Your Mouth, Heal Your Body Mastermind, is I do a deep look at the gut and how you actually need to look at it as a whole. This is why often when it comes to tooth decay issues, you could be feeding your kid the healthiest diet, organic whole foods, no processed sugars, what have you, but their gut is so leaky that the food is simply just going through their system. It's causing inflammation instead of nourishing their body and gums. And so looking at the leaky gut and addressing that in a holistic fashion is really, really paramount. Now, some people think that, tooth grinding is hereditary, and oftentimes it's not. It's oftentimes more the environment than the actual genes that you've inherited, right? And why do I say that, right? Because, let's say your husband is a grinder, right? And you see that your child is a grinder, you think, oh, he must have inherited it from his dad. But you have to keep in mind that, what if there are some environmental factors that triggered it in your husband, and the same thing is happening with your child. And so I really want you to look at the environment more instead of playing, victimhood, like, oh, I can't do anything about this, it's just hereditary. No, there's something that you can do. And if you look at the root cause, you can actually make a lot of headway. Going along with other factors, stress and anxiety, and this is real. And sometimes people notice that when they are less stressed and when they are less anxious, that they don't have the symptoms of grinding as much or the clenching as much. And that's very true, right? In the sense that, having a lot of stress is going to deplete things like magnesium, right? And when you have depleted magnesium levels, this is going to impact the muscular tightening, the muscle tightening mechanism in your body. And this is why, going back to dairy, which is extremely high in calcium but not much magnesium, that's why it can have the opposite effect. I'm just trying to show you how things are all interconnected. It's not as, mutually exclusive as people would like it to be. And so sometimes people notice that, if they supplement with things like magnesium, they will notice an improvement, which is wonderful, right? But I'm here to show you a really holistic way of looking at it, that yes, magnesium can definitely play a role, but I urge you to look at it, to chunk up and look at things from the bigger point of view. And this is why today what I actually want to do is really focus with you on airway issues, because this is the most overlooked factor when it comes to teeth grinding issues. Now, oftentimes, and I'm going to ask you right now, I want you to think about it. Have you seen your child snore? Whether it's a little bit, have you seen them, sleep with their mouth open, or even go about the day with their mouth open? I want you to take the time, give them something that they can focus on during the day, a puzzle, a coloring page. And I want you just to sit back and take a look. Okay, do they have that mouth sealed, or is it open? Okay. And a real serious reason for snoring issues and teeth grinding issues is sleeping with the mouth open and oxygen deprivation. That's all actually interconnected. And so you might be thinking, that snoring is something cute, or that it's just a problem for, overweight men. And while it's true that a lot of, adults do snore, I want you to think about the fact that there's a lot of kids that do snore, and it's not cute. And it can actually really cause some serious health consequences, right? And snoring in kids is linked with sleep disorders, right? And it shouldn't be ignored. Your kids' actual health and the way they look, their appearance, can be deeply impacted by something, innocent like snoring. And so I want you to think, maybe you have a child who's really struggling at school. You know what I mean? I know right now everyone's home with COVID-19, but I want you to think about the time in school. Maybe you're getting complaints from the teacher. They're causing a lot of disturbance in the class. They can't sit, they can't focus, they can't do this, that, or the other thing. and they're eager to get, to see some sort of specialist so that you can, get a prescription for Ritalin, right? And so, instead of, just drugging our kids through to supposedly mask these symptoms, right? I'm here to tell you, you know that there's a reason for this. And I'm sure a lot of you would rather avoid medication for their children. And so instead, I want you to look at, the bigger cause of this so-called, attention deficit disorder and what have you, ADD, ADHD, right? There's a bigger reason for that, right? And right now what I want to do is share with you how the snoring actually impacts things and how it's related to the teeth grinding and the oxygen deprivation all in one. So the snoring is a sound that happens when someone is breathing through a reduced airway, okay? And the reduced airway is located between, the nose and the voice box. Sometimes it can be soft, sometimes it can be pretty loud and obnoxious, and it can be the first sign of a serious sleeping disorder, but not always, okay? Now, it can come from many different things. So the nasal passages, the inner cheeks, the tongue and the areas around the tongue, the tonsils and all that. And what ends up happening is when a person, there's different stages of sleep, right? You've got the light sleep, you've got, and progressively you get deeper and deeper and then you cycle back again. It keeps repeating, right? It's not like you just go to sleep and you're knocked out for 8 hours straight. That's not how it works. You actually go through various sleep phases. They're called sleep cycles, right? And so when you actually reach the deep stage of sleep, the airway and the soft tissues, they start relaxing. And what ends up happening with someone who doesn't have proper jaw growth is the area becomes narrow, okay? And then this actually increases the pressure, right? I want you to think about, this is the chemical engineer coming out of me again. When you have to go through a narrower passage, the pressure increases, right? And so this causes the vibration. So things like, obesity, or if someone's got like enlarged or inflamed tonsils and adenoids, can cause snoring. And then things also, like very commonly in adults, is weight gain can also cause snoring as well. And with time, it can get worse. And what ends up happening is your child might actually stop breathing while they're sleeping, okay? And this is called apnea. And so this is why a child who has something like that needs to be treated as soon as possible. Now, what are the impacts of this, right? The impact of this is, serious health consequences, right? It can lead to, and I'm telling you to think about this long, right? Like you're thinking about this long term. You know that you want to address this now because you're thinking long term, 20, 30 years from now, decreasing the risk of high blood pressure in your son, stroke and heart attack in your daughter. You know what I mean? Things like type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease. You know what I mean? And the more you let a child continue on with mouth breathing and snoring, what does that mean actually is that they probably do not have proper oral posture, right? They don't have their lips sealed. They don't have the tongue resting up on top of the palate to expand the palate. And so not only are you dealing with that, but you're dealing with a higher likelihood of your child needing braces down the road. And what I do is I help my clients, those who want alternatives to traditional orthodontics, right? You may be a mother who had retractive orthodontics. You had your four premolars, your four premolars, extracted, and everything was pushed back, and your wisdom teeth were extracted. So at the end of the day, you started out with 32 teeth, but by the end of your treatment, you're left with 24, right? This is a very common scenario, and it's been the standard for many years when it comes to orthodontics, that it's all about that straight smile, and it comes at the expense of so many other things, right? How many people are suffering with chronic jaw and neck pain as a result of the orthodontic braces that they went through? Chronic headaches, you know what I mean? Dealing with even more sleep apnea events. Why? Because they're having chronic snoring issues and mouth breathing issues because their jaw was retracted, right? They didn't address that root cause. And what I'm here to do, what I really inspire mothers, is to actually look at address that root cause. Yes, it's going to take more work. Yes, you're going to be committed to the process, but that is really important to you because you're thinking ahead. You're thinking 10, 20, 15, 30 years down the road, right? This is really important to you. And so circling back to the whole ADHD thing is when you have a child who's snoring, this stops your child from, getting that deep, high quality sleep, right? It prevents you from reaching that phase. And this is actually extremely crucial for children because during those sleep phases, your body produces a hormone called human growth hormone, HCG. It's really important for physical and mental development. And when you have a lack of this hormone, it's going to prevent normal growth in the body and in the brain, right? So that means your child is going to have a lack of oxygen, and it means that your child's brain is never truly resting, and that your child's brain isn't actually getting the chance to lay down new neurons, right? So I want you to imagine how distressing it is for your child, right? So you have a child who's struggling with school, they can't focus, they can't think, they can't sit, they're causing a lot of disturbances. I want you to think about, it's instead of thinking about, how do you stop this in your child, you are inspired that you want to actually get to that root cause and address it from there, because it's not about the how as much as it is about the why. When you look at the why, when you address the why, the how becomes easy, and it's simply a matter of executing your plan. So if your child doesn't get adequate time in that deep sleep phase, right, they're going to feel tired, they're going to be grumpy, they're going to be confused, they're going to have a lot of feelings of overwhelm, and that's what all those different disturbing actions are as a result of, right? And, the stress is going to be built up and the attention span is going to be limited. And I want you to think about a child who's already still trying to develop their own emotional intelligence, still trying to sort out their feelings and make sense of this world. How horrible this is for them to feel. You know what I mean? Yes, it's causing, issues for your son's teacher or what have you, but I want you to think about how much they're suffering as well. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I thought you were going to be talking about grinding, Amani, but now you're talking about snoring. Like, what's all the connection with this? So what ends up happening with someone who's grinding is when your sleep is disturbed in a sleep apneic event, right, where you actually stop breathing, the grinding is actually your body's mechanism to keep you alive. So it's actually a good thing, right? The grinding is, what ends up happening is your body has this sort of reaction where it causes the grinding to kind of wake you up out of that deep sleep. That way you end up pushing your lower jaw forward, and the grinding happens just to wake you up, to protect you. So it's actually a life-saving mechanism, but it has so many devastating consequences, right? When it comes to teeth grinding, so you're looking at, tooth decay issues, right? How many children's tooth decay issues are actually a result of grinding? Because the alignment of the teeth is off, and there's excess wear and tear on the enamel. And once you destroy that enamel, which is the hardest material in the body, you're looking at dentin, which isn't as strong as enamel, and it's a lot more susceptible to external circumstances than enamel is, right? And so, so you're looking at tooth decay issues. You're looking at, if someone has, chronic mouth breathing issues, they're going to have a chronically acidic saliva. And if you look at cavities, tooth decay cannot happen unless there are the perfect conditions, and the perfect conditions are acidic saliva. So like I said, you might be feeding your kid the healthiest diet. You're doing a lot of hard work with raw milk, cod liver oil, the whole 9 yards, but they're chronically mouth breathing. And, there's only so much you can do with food and diet. Obviously, this is the foundation, and that's what my program is based on, right? Nourish your teeth and gums. But it is actually limited if you're not addressing everything else that ties in with that. You know what I mean? And so you're going to be fighting an uphill battle with, managing that saliva. And we talked about last week about the benefits of xylitol, which is great, right? It alkalizes the saliva. It makes the plaque less sticky. It kills the Streptococcus mutans bacteria. All amazing things, right? It's great. But it doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes some people, especially with leaky gut problems, they really can't tolerate the high levels of and the frequent doses of xylitol, right? Because you do need to use it several times a day, between 5 to 8 exposures, to actually get the therapeutic benefit. And so you can't rely on that. And so what ends up happening is, like that story that I shared with you about my chronic acne, that I was trying for so many years, trialing different topical products, salicylic acid peels, different types of really aggressive peels to, get my skin to stop breaking out. Well, yeah, my skin would look a little bit nicer, but it didn't stop the eruptions from happening, right? And you could be chasing that saliva all the time, but if you're not addressing the root cause of that acidity, you're going to have a really hard time, keeping up with it, maintaining it, and actually, not just halting the tooth decay, but actually maintaining the healing of the teeth, right? And this is why a lot of times when I hear moms say, I was able to halt my child's tooth decay, what I'm curious is about, a year from now, 2 years from now, how is your child's tooth? Were you really able to, did it stay that way or did it get worse? Because I'm here to give you my firsthand experience. I was able to heal my son's teeth within 2 weeks using mineral supplementation, vitamin supplementation, aggressive diet, but I wasn't able to maintain it. Why? Because I didn't address the root cause, which was airway issues in his case. And so what ended up happening is, with a rapid period of time, his teeth went downhill. And this was years ago. And back then I was heartbroken. I was devastated. I was crying. I was like, my God, I already dealt with this with my daughter. Why is it happening again? You know what I mean? And I already did things like the lip tie and tongue tie release, which is very highly recommended, right? But I still didn't see results. Why? Because I didn't have that bigger picture in mind, especially that airway piece, which is absolutely critical. And so once again, going back to that point, grinding the teeth is the patient is able to reopen the airway to keep themselves alive, which is awesome. But like I said, looking at tooth decay issues, grinding issues, and even I want you right now to look at yourself as a mother. How many mothers are coming up to me and telling me they're having a lot of tooth sensitivity, or that for some reason they're having a lot of gum recession, right? When you constantly have your teeth in that poor, that poor form, in that poor relationship, it's going to put excess wear and excess pressure on the wrong places. And what ends up happening is things like gum recession. And so, you're thinking you can oil pull your way out of it. Not that oil pulling isn't great. It can be amazing for some people, not all. But is you're going to have a really hard time with your gums. And what does that mean? That means if it continues to happen, you're looking at eventual tooth loss, right? So God forbid you really want to avoid that. And so it's absolutely critical for you to actually address that airway piece. And as you can see, one of the things I mentioned in the post when I shared it today is, commonly the most common thing to look at or to use for, grinding is, get a mouth guard. Okay. The mouth guard can be great in the sense that it's going to protect your teeth, but it doesn't address the root cause. And what ends up happening is you're simply transferring the pressure onto your jaw joint. And so what happens with some people, let me know in the comments if you had this happen with you before, where you were complaining of, clenching, tooth sensitivity, you're having a bit of gum recession, your dentist told you here's a mouth guard. It was custom made for you. But what ended up happening is you decided to leave it because it wasn't really comfortable. It wasn't real, it wasn't practical. And at the same time, you started getting a lot of headaches or a lot of, pain in the actual jaw joint, right? Again, this is just, you're just trying to stop the destruction on the teeth, but you're not solving it, okay? So what I'm here to encourage you to think about is long-term, that you want to address these airway issues. You want to, most importantly, reestablish nasal breathing in your child, right? And this is going to take dedication. This is going to take commitment. And it's absolutely important for you because you know that it's more than just the tooth decay issues for you, right? Because if it was just about tooth decay for you as a holistic mother, you know what I mean? Then you would have just gotten your child's teeth drilled and filled if you were able to. You know what I mean? You would say, you know what? I'm not dealing with this. Let me get the teeth drilled and filled. I'm done with that. But you're not like that. For you, it's not just about the cavities. It's not just about the teeth. You're thinking about the mouth-body connection. That's what you're passionate about, right? You want to know, why is this tooth decay happening? What imbalances are going on? What can I do to address this? And if this is what's happening here, what's happening with their bones, right? If this is what's happening here, what's happening with their brain? What's going on with their digestive system? You know what I mean? And for you, you're thinking about your child in the long run. You want to raise a really happy and healthy and thriving child. This is so important for you. So if you're that kind of a mother and you're looking for a comprehensive system that covers, the A to Z when it comes to tooth decay issues, right? Looking at it more than just, diet and oral hygiene. You want a really comprehensive system that covers, things like airway issues. You're looking for things that, cover quantum biology. You're looking for things that actually, put things into perspective based on spirituality. You're looking at it from a faith-based perspective where you know that ultimately God is the one that heals, right? You could be doing everything left, right, and center to do things, but you know that the results are not from you. But what you're trying to do is you want to do your part and rely on the results from God. That is really, really important for you. And the other thing is you want something that is not a quick fix. You want something that goes deep. You are looking for something that is really, really structured, right? A lot of moms come to me and they're saying they're just sick and tired. And let me know in the comments if this resonates with you, that you're just tired of, doing all the searching, doctor Googling things and Facebook searching things. And there's so many different contradicting pieces of information. You're like, okay, someone says this, but someone says that. And I'm tempted to do this, but I'm wondering about the negative effects from that. And you just want to get support and guidance in actually a very small and structured group where you're going to be guided by someone who's actually been through it not only once, but twice with both her children. And alhamdulillah, I'm here to say this was, a really life-changing experience, me having to deal with this tooth decay in my children. And it really broke my heart. I cried so much. And it really was actually a blessing in disguise, because it was one of the things that actually brought me closer to God and made me realize how little control I had, right? And this is probably one of the biggest things that people struggle with. And if you think about the whole COVID-19 pandemic, is people realize they don't really have control. Now, this is not to say playing victimhood. You want to focus on doing the things that you can do that are within your power. What are you able to control? Your thoughts, your feelings, your mindset, the habits that you do. And this is how I help you with my program, right? Because you could have all the tools. You could be having a remineralizing toothpaste. You could be having amazing food, but how are you implementing it? And what is your mindset while you're implementing it, right? Is that, subhanAllah, glory be to God, you actually, what you want to do is have that peace and that tranquility while you're doing things, right? I've had clients of mine where, their kid was just about to, they were terrified that their child was going to go under general anesthesia. And they were actually able to heal, not just halt, but heal their children's cavities. And it was confirmed by their own dentist. Or, mothers who, really did not want to go the general anesthesia route, and they were actually able to get their child, a child younger than 3 years old, to actually be able to sit for a procedure, for a 2.5-hour procedure with just a local anesthetic. So I'm here to tell you, if it's possible for them, it's possible for you. You just have to make that decision. So the question is, what are you going to choose today? You've got this information right now. If you're ready to take charge of your child's oral health and heal yourself in the process and energize your body, speak with me, send me a message, DM me, let's talk. Let's see if this is the right next step for you. And I would be honored to be a part of your healing process, inshallah, God willing. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please post them in the comments below. And for those who are in my exclusive group for women, Tooth Decay and Airway Support Group for Moms, I'll be going there live right now to do the Q&A. With that, thank you so much. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you, and keep on smiling because it looks great on you.